Oh my God. If you only knew how hard it was what I just went through to get this live Facebook feature to work. Facebook updated their website. Anyway, my problem's not yours. Okay, here we go. I want to talk about yo-yo dieting and being successful on diets. And some fair warning. First of all, I've debated about calling this mini live podcast thing a series, Banging with Basek. But then I thought that might be inappropriate. So title is still pending. Anyway, okay. This may ruffle a few feathers, but look, I'm here to be everybody's coach. And while I don't know, I certainly don't know everything, and the information I may have maybe proven to be wrong one day. But this is what I know as I know it right now based on everything that I'm studying. Also, I just want to reiterate, this comes from my coaches, right? I have many mentors. One of them is Trevor Cashy. He's a nutritionist, a PhD, and he's where I get a ton of my information. So a lot of this is recycled from him and also from Jim Rohn. So let's get to it. Why do I keep on gaining and losing the same 30 pounds? Okay. Or some variation thereof as it is applicable to your life. Kind of taboo how I'm going to answer it because it kind of sort of takes the finger and redirects it in a place that you may not like. Kind of. Okay. But instead of just pointing figures from a safe distance of 6 foot nowadays, I'm going to try and provide some perspective to help you rearrange your thought patterns because a lot of this mindset is really, really important. Remember, according to me, right? Which, take that for what it's worth. Mindset is perhaps the most important thing. So let's start with the obvious. If you've already lost 30 pounds and then gained it and then lost it and then gained it, you already know what to do, right? Like, knowledge is never the problem. I cannot tell you how often I tell people that I work with it, like, knowledge is not the problem. In 2020, all of the information of the entire world is on the internet. You can go to Google and type in, how do I do keto? Because this is apparently how you type, in case you didn't know. Type like this. How do I keto? How do I paleo? How do I do push-ups? Everything is already on the internet, okay? So knowledge is not the problem. So let's address why, okay? Why can you put your foot on the gas, lose 30 pounds, and at the same time your foot on the brake, gain it again, or worse, go in reverse? Now, this comes from Jim Rohn. He's like one of my favorite all-time motivators, and that is inspiration and motivation is important, but let's be honest, okay, for most, I'm going to backtrack a little bit. Inspiration and motivation is important, okay? But let's be honest, for most people, isn't living a long life, a healthy life, a productive life, one where you're not in a wheelchair, one where you're not in a hospital, and one where you're not in a nursing home, isn't that enough real motivation as it is? I think sometimes we get caught up in the whole, you need a strong enough why, because it makes you feel better. Like, oh, like I'm connected emotionally to like, now my why is strong. Now, I do think that inspiration is important, okay? But don't we all just want to live a longer life? Like, isn't life a good enough motivation, right? Isn't it? So life change, this comes from Jim Rohn, does not start with inspiration. Life change starts with education, okay? Now, whether you self-educate or you hire a coach, it starts with education. But education without action is wasted. Labor brings life. In one of Jim Rohn's talks, he talks about labor, and he says, I'm not an expert on labor, and you can hear the crowd laughing because obviously men can't have babies, except for Arnold Schwarzenegger, who proves that men can do anything they want. Terrible movie. Give it a watch anyway. Anyway, men cannot have labor. But why do women go through labor pains? Why do women suffer? And the answer is because life. Labor brings life. And it's not just about children, right? Like, our labor brings us new life. So the real reason for the yo-yoing is not this emotional, I need inspiration, and it's not knowledge. The real reason, wait for it, is self-sabotage. The finger points at you. Now, this may hurt some feelings, okay? But it's the truth, because here's the alternative. If it's not us to blame, then who or what? And if it's a who, like a person, or a what, like a condition, the weather, my house, not having the equipment, if it is actually some external factor, then that means that we are resigned to sit back and let life happen to us, and there's nothing we can do. Right? So it may hurt your feelings that the real reason you're yo-yoing or not getting the results you want is you. That may be hard to hear, right? But that is the truth. And the good news is that means you're able to audit your actions in your life and make changes in order to improve. You can get better, okay? This comes from Jim Rohn. I used to say it called Alexa off. That'll teach you. Alexa, off. Okay. I used to say it cost too much, but then I realized the real problem was I couldn't afford it. I used to think it was the problem until all of my business mentors said, no, Eric, you are the problem. You are the problem, right? That your marriage could be better, your parenting could be better, your business could be better, your leadership with your employees could be better. You are the problem, and that takes humility to hear, or at least humility to believe and then make changes. You already know the rules and behaviors you need to follow to lose weight. That's why you're yo-yoing. Here's the kicker. You give yourself permission to break said rules that you've made for yourself. You give yourself the option to fall short of the criteria that you set for yourself. So in your brain, you've only created a temporary commitment to these new behaviors, okay? So how do you feel? How do you feel? This is important. Let's talk about emotion for a little bit. How do you feel about the past, right? I can't tell you the number of clients I have my 2-week meeting with. We talk about this and I say, you can do this, you can do that, and you can do this. And they say, well, I've always struggled. That is allowing the past to be a hammer that beats you, okay? Instead of reaching back into the past for the gift that is education. Look back at that gift as experience and education to make yourself better. Now, that's the past. Now, how do we feel about the future? The truth is the future should be a promise. And if the promise is clear, the price is easy. Think about this. Think about us, you parents out there that have kids. If we can get our kids to see the promise clearly, they will pay the price. Last night in bed, I put Logan in bed. We were talking about the body and the bones, and I was describing to him like, oh, this is the mandible, and this is the ocular joint, right? Or the ocular cavity, and this is the cranium. And where I was explaining the bones and the big names, he's like, wow, that's really cool. And I was like, there was a point, Logan, where I thought about being a doctor. And he was like, really, a doctor? And I laid down next to him and I said, very, very with intent and belief. This is the greatest country in the world. We live in the greatest time period of human history. And if you want to be a doctor, Logan, you can be a doctor. If you want to be an astronaut, Logan, you can be an astronaut. If you want to fly jets, Logan, you can fly jets. If you have the right attitude and you put in the effort, you can do anything that you want. And I believe that. And if he sees that picture clearly enough and he believes it, then he'll actually pay the price because he believes it. So what I'm saying to you is, how do you feel about your future? Do you believe it? Because if you can't see that future clearly, you're not going to be willing to pay the price. Does that make sense? A well-designed future. Let's paint that clear future. Now, how do you feel about everybody else? We talk about where you point the fingers. Why? One reason you can't succeed by yourself. You just can't. You need help. It's hard to find a rich hermit. That comes from Jim Rohn. What we all need is each other. Okay? Each of us needs all of us. One person does not make a symphony orchestra. One person does not make a family. Now, here's what's exciting. Each of us actually has all of us. We all have all of us. Like I can take from the experience of all these people all around me if I'm willing to either make relationships or pay for their time, right? Because time is valuable, right? So it's a mindset and perspective. Now, this morning, I spoke to 4 people in 4 different time zones to help me edit videos to create an online website. We're going to create an online academy, right? So we're going to have access to these workouts and nutritional tips, and we're going to create an online academy that is extremely cheap, lifetime memberships, in order to give everybody access to exercise, nutrition, and tips that doesn't have the time or the convenience to go to a gym. And so I spent all this time this morning talking to people all over the planet in order to help make this happen. Man, is that not incredible? Mindset. Where is your mindset, right? Look, President JFK, right? He said it best, right? And surely it's the cry of all our modern political parties, right? JFK, he said, ask. What did he say? He said, ask for everything and see what you'll wind up with, right? No, it's not what he said. He said, ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country. So ask not right? Like what other people can do for you, ask what you can do for them. And in turn, we all help each other. The power goes back to the individual. Okay, more on mindset. Let's talk about before and after photos. I post a before and after photo, and somebody experiences great results. And it never, it always happens that somebody will feel less about themselves when they see that. Or they'll make a comment to me, well, how long did it take? How long did it take for them to get those results? Well, who cares how long it took? It took. Yay for them. But it's an interesting peer into your mindset. If you're jealous, that could be because you're not painting a clear enough picture of your future, the promise of your future. You don't believe it can happen. So you feel jealous. How could it happen to them? And if we're talking about time periods, what you're doing is you're actually giving yourself permission for the whole experiment to be temporary. The very fact that you want to define the time that it took them to get to somewhere insinuates that there's an actual endpoint to what we're trying to accomplish. If you got to where you wanted to be, does it matter if it took 2 years or 2 months? Because I'm pretty sure both of those people will be happy. So if the first thing that comes to mind is how long, you're thinking, well, when I get there, when do I get to change back to my old behaviors? The yo-yo. You're thinking of the time when you won't have to diet again, or whatever dieting means, right? So these mental seeds of temporary change allow you to go off the diet that you started in the first place, which is why you're back to where you began. Does any of that make sense? Or feels like the segment in the movie Spaceballs where they're like, what are we watching? We're watching now. Everything that's happening now is happening now. When will then be now? Soon. Anyway, I digress. By the way, I've had a bang. Did you know that? Okay. So when you're thinking about this temporary mindset, you are asking the question, are we there yet? Which is the same thing as asking, when is this over? And it's unlikely that any of your weight loss crept up on you. That where you are now is a result of conscious decisions. Biologically speaking, okay, there's a homeostasis in your body, and we could say that 1% of changes could be called creep. So 1% of your weight over a year. So if you weigh 180 pounds, 1% of your weight is 1.8 pounds, right? And so you could say that 1.8 pounds every year. So in 10 years, you gain 18 pounds. Okay, that makes sense. That's creep. All right. But 18 pounds in a year, that's not creep. That is conscious behavior choices that should be audited. And while that may hurt your feelings, that is good because it means that it is in the power to audit those behaviors and change them. It's confusing to assign responsibility to anything or anyone other than you. Putting that responsibility on somebody else robs you of the ability to change it. I'll say it again. Putting the responsibility on some other thing or some other person robs you of the ability to change it. Now, psychology is binary. It's up or down. But biology is not. It works on a continuum. For instance, I can't tell you the number of people that think, oh, I'll just start my diet again on Monday. Your body doesn't have a Monday. It's just one continual circle. If you eat good 6 days and you fuck it up day 7, it doesn't know that day 8 you're starting over again. It just knows what you ate the last 7. It is a continuum and your body keeps track. We think of starting the week on Monday, but our biology doesn't know what Monday is. If you think that you are on plan 8 of 10 days, it's easy for you to think that you deserve 80% of the results, but all that does is breed entitlement. It's not fair. I worked hard. 9 out of 10 days, screw this plan, it doesn't work, and Coach Eric is a big fat dumb meanie head. Your body has fancy machinery, and if you are off plan or on plan, whatever the hell that is, your body doesn't actually know the difference. Your body doesn't know what on plan or off plan is. It just knows what you're taking in. It has an exact measurement of what you take in, and it stores that information, and it stores it on your waist and on your butt and on your thighs. This is a number game, and it may upset you that it is a numbers game, but at the end of the day, it is a numbers game. If you don't believe in calories, it doesn't matter. They believe in you. Okay? That's it. This is a lifestyle. It is not temporary. There is no diet. You do not get permission to go off it. Okay? Now, when it comes to the numbers, I will say that most people are not intentional liars. My clients are not intentional liars, I don't think. But humans are intentional forgetters. It also happens that we are people who forget the most self-incriminating things that we do. And that self-incriminating behavior comes in the form of these micro-conversations that we have with ourselves. We give ourselves permission to do something that we know will hurt us later, but we do it anyway. This is the essence of self-sabotage. Now, I've been good most of the week, so it's time to have a good time and go off the plan. By the way, your body, again, doesn't know what on or off the plan is. Life is unfair and is inconvenient, so I will meditate with food and bad behavior. I am so stressed out with anxiety. Food and drink is the best thing to calm me down. I need to finish my plate. Otherwise, all of this food will go to waste. Or as my father would tell me, there are starving children in Africa. You must eat your plate. Sunday is my birthday. I will start my diet on Monday. These are micro conversations. And what they do is they give you permission to act silly while also lamenting on life's unfairness. You make new rules, you follow those rules, you change the rules back to the old rules, and then you regret that decision. And you're strengthening your cognitive consistency muscles. This is where people grant themselves permission to behave in a way that perpetuates their problems. And they come to a fork in the road that you can address. You can identify and address these self-sabotaging thoughts so that you can interject logic instead of your emotional impulses. See, this is the great thing when you point the finger at you, that you can be aware of this, that you can come to that fork in the road, identify and address these sabotaging thoughts, and then think logically instead of emotionally. We do not need to be controlled by our emotion. A wonderful quote by Viktor Frankl, who wrote the book Man's Search for Meaning. He happens to be a medical doctor and a world-renowned psychologist who survived Auschwitz. Between stimulus and response, there is a space. And in that space is the power to choose our response. And in that response lies our growth and our freedom. It's powerful, right? This is about doing things that you know you need to do to succeed, even when it's unfair, even when it's difficult, even when it feels like life is throwing you lemons, it's unfair, why me? And even when you feel, because even though you feel one way, we do not want to become a slave to our emotions, as I all think that this can lead us down a very interesting and not so pleasant path. Don't be a slave to your emotions. This is what our entire coaching program is about. It's about being logical and auditing our behavior and being consistent and being mindful. We have you take photos of your meals so you can be mindful. We have you fill out your stats sheet every day so that you can be mindful. We give the power back to you. We are just there for gentle nudging. Identify the stimulus, identify the potential emotional response, and interject some logic. Now, the fact that I am identifying these problems for you does not make it easy to solve. What I'm not saying is you're to blame and it's really easy to fix this problem. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is you're to blame. So now let's audit our behaviors. Let's interject some logic and let's try to change them for the better. And by the way, this is a lifelong pursuit. Close the gap between intention and intervention. That is my soapbox for today. I'm all hopped up on Bang Energies. I hope that this makes sense. I hope that this helps you. And I hope that you have an awesome day.